So how to create a defence if you're a birth worker, doctor, doula, midwife. There are differences. If you're on a professional regulator or register, that will have some impact. So the first thing to do is look at what are the allegations, who are the accusers, and then your rebuttal, only giving the information that's of benefit to you. So first of all, what are the allegations? Is there actually any evidence to them? What are the facts? Use the 6 questions: who, how, why, what, where, and when. Every time you get an answer, you're just clarifying, you want to get more information. Who saw that? When was that? Give me the document for that, because people can say something happened and they don't actually have any evidence of it. And things change, they become stories, and different people believe different things happened. Not because they're always even malicious or trying to do something wrong, but their memory is not accurate. So for you to rebut something, you need to know what the allegations are. You should know who the accusers are. Sometimes that's protected. So a regulator might say, we've got a complaint against you, we won't tell you who it's from. And they can do that. But you can test the regulator. Now, often regulators over-prosecute, they're overzealous, and they have people employed who simply want to win. They think there's no smoke without fire. If there's an allegation against a clinician, it's probably true, and they can win a point, move on to their next case, win another point, move on to their next job, and more highly paid jobs, because they have a high conviction rate. They're not actually looking at truth and honesty and facts. They're just focused on winning at all costs in many cases. Of course, if you're a doula, you're not regulated, but doulas sometimes have challenges because some regions, health authorities, countries have a lot of power to say if anybody gives clinical advice or help at a birth, therefore you're a clinician, and if you're not licensed, that's breaking their laws, and you can have a fine imposed and possibly even a jail sentence. So that's, if you're a doula, even a birth photographer, a friend, a family member, helping your friend who's giving birth, and you could be criticised. So documentation helps us. Creating evidence can be our own witness statement. If they've taken action against us and that's had a negative impact, you can have an impact statement, sometimes called a victim impact statement. If somebody's lost their job, their professional reputation, their personal reputation, their ability to do other work like teaching or expert witness report writing or something else, they've suffered some harm, and it's quantifiable as financial harm and emotional harm. So creating evidence is witness statement for ourselves. Our colleagues or friends could write a statement about what they know to be true to have happened, what facts they've witnessed and observed, or even conversations you've had with them afterwards, and they can document this happened or this conversation happened. Equally, even if somebody's not helpful to you, maybe the opposing party, and you've had a conversation with them, you can document that conversation, and that becomes evidence. I like using a quote that somebody would say, turn it onto landscape, put in very large fonts what it was they said that you think is powerful, put it in with the bundle of papers. So you've got your witness statement, you've got other witnesses, you may get expert witness statements. And that doesn't have to be a PhD person, midwife, doctor. It could be somebody, another student midwife writing about a fellow student midwife, or anybody else saying what the reasonable standard of care ought to have been, and what you did, and whether what you did was reasonable. And you tie up the law with the facts and bring those two together. We all have rights. We have human rights. The people giving birth, the women, their partners, their families, particularly the overarching right to private and family life. That's Article 8 of the United Nations Convention. The right to private and family life. It applies to midwives, doctors, doulas, everyone. So we have a right to work, we have a right not to be discriminated against, that's Article 14. We have a right to fair process, that's Article 6. Now, if we're employed, the employer may scapegoat somebody. They may want to protect the reputation of their brand, of their corporation. If it's a private hospital, if it's a public hospital, they still have professional reputation that they want to protect, and they might throw somebody to the wolves. They scapegoat somebody saying it's not the system, it's that one person, and very often it is the system. Even if that one person failed in some way, could the system have done better? So really focus on system areas and system solutions. By being positive, almost hypnobirthing ourselves, turning negative statements like I didn't call the ambulance for 30 minutes into I called the ambulance when it was required, for example at a home birth. So that's a negative, there's a positive, we're just going to swap them over, delete emotion, delete negativity, or transpose negative into positive. Article 3 is another human right we have, not to suffer inhumane, degrading treatment. It was designed to stop torture, but people who are treated badly by their employers can actually become suicidal. Even thinking about suicide is a horrible impact on their life. Many clinicians I've spoken to who come to me for legal advice and support have reported suicidal ideation, and in a few rare cases people have committed suicide. Now in the UK they had too many prosecutions done by in-house prosecutors of an organisation, happened to be the Post Office. It was a well-reputed organisation, and people running their own independent branches were criticised that they were stealing money, and they were not. It was an error in the computer system. So it went from a very low number to a huge number overnight when they introduced a new computer system that had some problems. So clearly the system was wrong, and yet they continued with their prosecutions of people, and now the prosecutors are the defendants in an inquiry. It's not civil or criminal litigation, it's a public inquiry, but from that can happen both criminal and civil proceedings, and it's out there in public. So what's behind closed doors very often is a prosecution against somebody. We think you did this thing bad or wrong, we're not always going to tell you all the facts, and we start an action against you, and it drags over years, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, even 7 years. There's a famous midwife, had a case for 7 years, Barbara Harper, some people will know her. Gloria LeMay's had a case and she's been jailed. Agnes Gerob in Hungary was jailed and pardoned. And in Berlin there was Anna Rockcall-Lowenhoff. So these are the names of people that have been jailed. There were others who had, for example, a 5-year case in Australia, nothing at the end of it. And cases are started often without an expectation of even winning. So the case in America where they took Angela Hock to court for unlawful death of a breech birth baby, which tragically died, and the family had engaged that same midwife previously. She's an unlicensed midwife working in the traditional way and how things are in some states. And the family knew her credentials, what she could and could not do, and they were happy. The breech was undiagnosed, and they continued and went ahead with it. The case went on for 3 years, and that causes immense harm, personal, professional, reputational harm, financial, loss of income, everything else. And really the last few minutes of the whole case, it was recorded on live court television, sums it up, that the state failed to prove this person was responsible for the death of that baby. This is often the case. We need to know what is the cause of death of a baby, and did the person's act or omission, their negligence, cause that. So congenital abnormality is clearly not caused by a clinician. It's something a baby's born with and may die before birth, during the pregnancy, at the birth, or shortly after a birth, and it's nobody's fault. They're strange words to say, nobody's fault. Everybody wants to find fault. There's somebody to blame. The system, the person, the government. Sometimes there's nobody's fault. It is what it is. With birth and life, there will be death. It happens. If there are mistakes, we need to be focused on solutions and fixing them so they're not repeated. And this is where the systems fail. They will continue to repeat until they're challenged. So I suggest you challenge the challenger with education and kindness, with evidence, with research. You give them the information that's only of benefit to you. Don't give them everything, you just give enough to rebut the allegations. There's so much to talk about on these subjects. I welcome questions, and I'll keep it short for the moment and do separate talks on expert witness reports and how to take actions to make a claim in the civil courts, and to take cases against regulators, against employers, maybe how to challenge coroners. For example, I've done judicial review of a coroner's decision, it was actually very quick and easy to do. So people often have a fear of the law. Some people have fear of clinical things like giving birth or other things. And we need to face these fears, be comfortable being uncomfortable, research, read, practice, and do other techniques that are positive and help us to become more comfortable in those areas that we're traditionally uncomfortable with. For example, the law, taking cases, because very often we don't need to follow a case all the way through. We start a case and then we get the other party to engage, to mediate, to have a conversation and find a solution that hopefully is an agreement for both sides or for all sides. And I will do separate talks on mediation, communication styles, advocacy, negotiation and mediation. Thank you.